Well, hello, my friends, and welcome back to Where Wendy Travels, Where Wendy Creates. Today we are working on a fidget quilt. What is a fidget quilt? A fidget quilt is an activity mat. It gives your fingers lots of different textures to play with, things to move back and forth, to stretch, to zipper. It's a learning and a relearning tool. Has buttons, teach you how to button your shirt. So whether you're young or whether you are old and have a desire to fidget with your hands and have something interesting to rub on and play with, or if you need to relearn some tasks such as buttons and zippers and hooks and loop, where you can pull these apart and put them back together like shoes, like some clothes. This is a great tool to make. So let's see what we have today. We are looking at some pretty textural. These are made out of burlap. They're little rosettes. You can make these or you can purchase these. I'm not sure if these came from a secondhand store or from the craft store, but they're absolutely delightful. Maybe we will make some in the future, but not today. You also have the shoelaces to learn or relearn how to tie your shoe, whether that is with one hand or with two hands. Perhaps after a stroke or an injury, you only have one hand left. Or perhaps it's just needing something to do with your hands. A fidget quilt, an activity mat, is something that affixes all of these down onto one stable piece of fabric that you can have in your lap, and that way they don't get away from you. And I have with us today some double fold bias tape that we're going to go around the edges. We're going to add in some beautiful ribbons. Some of them is that velvet texture. Some of them is silky. Some of them are scraps. And as you see, I have a few spools here. Then we're going to work with 2.5-inch strips of fabric with some leftover batting. And we're going to create that hooks and loop. And the hooks and loop simply is hooks and loop in between this, so you can learn and relearn, whether you're using one hand or two, how to fasten your shoes, how to fasten anything with this hooks and loop material. It also makes a perhaps a pleasing sound. So you're working with all of the senses. You're feeling it, you're touching it, you're not smelling it, not unless you spritz it with your favorite perfume or cologne, but it does a lot for the visual, the textural, and the hearing. These, my friends, are actually paper grips. These pencil grips, excuse me, you normally put on an end of a pencil, but today you're going to see how we actually put them on the activity mat so they can move them back and forth. They're a gummy texture. They're fun to play with. So these are excellent to have. So go around your house right now, grab all the things you need. After you watch this video through, then put me on a second time and let's make one of these together. But we also use the headbands. We use different kid or toddler toys. They're good to feel, but you can also learn to grip and eat again. Usually the wider the handle is easier after a stroke to make your hands pick that spoon up. So this can be learning and relearning, as well as just a wonderful fidget tool. And the bows. You always want to make things happy and pretty, and these are silky and feel great. You can make them with the ribbons, or you can simply find some in a craft store, Goodwill store. Watch another one of my videos to see how to put these together. Okay, and we also have some tassels. I'm not sure if I paid that, but I probably did. It looks like it's comparable value of $6.99, our price $1.99. I don't know when I got these. I'm not really sure where I got these. But these are just fabric tassels that you can make yourself. And we're going to put them on both for the visual appeal as well as for what your fingers can do and play with. So we're going to sew these on, and they have just a nice fabric touch. And these are easy to make. We can make these today as well if we have a little bit of time. But I had these, so I got these out. But what we're going to work on today, as well as putting the whole fidget quilt together, is making one of these. So this is a very, very easy thing to do. You need the 2.5-inch strip, you need the batting, you need the hooks and loop that goes in the middle, and I have a piece right here. It's blue on purple. Maybe we'll find a purple piece, but it's easy to make, and let's get started. All right, so we have our 2.5-inch strips of fabric. We're going to go ahead and pull them apart. Just take one. Just take one. And we're going to take our scrap batting, and we want to cut it to the same size. And if I'm lucky, this piece might be big enough to do one full piece. We'll see. Nope, not quite. But we're going to go ahead and trim that batting down to 2.5 inches. And we can take that over to the cutting mat, or we can simply, because we want it rough, we're going to lay our 2.5-inch strip on top of it and just cut it with our scissors, or yes, it's easier, a cutting mat with the rotary blade. So either way you do it, and it's okay if you're a 1/4 inch over your 2.5-inch side, because this is going to be on the inside. No one's ever going to see it. No one's ever going to critique you on it. So we're going to take our leftover batting and set it aside for now. And let's go ahead and take this and turn it right side up. And our piece here, and it looks like we can't get 2 out of this, so we're going to make something else with the smaller part. And we're going to just take the end of it and trim a rough point on that. So we have a point cut out mimicking our piece that we have. So for y'all at home who says, Wendy, what size is that? Let me know the size so I can take that into consideration. Okay, so we have our ruler, and we're going to go ahead and measure this piece. And this piece is approximately 11 inches. So you can say 10 inches and then narrow it down to a point at the 11th inch. And that's just to mimic my size, which is a very nice, handy size to open and close and create that hooks and loop structure. So let's go ahead, and we're going to put right sides together for our fabric. So we want to determine what is our right sides. And this does not have to be connected. You can go ahead and cut that apart. It does not need to be connected. So you have 2 completely separate pieces. Put them right sides face together. And then we're going to lay them on top of our batting. And we're simply going to sew a 1/4 inch in on all sides, leaving, I don't think we're going to leave anything. We're going to go ahead and sew it all the way around, and then we'll slice in the middle to turn it right side out and cover that with the hooks and loop. So let's go ahead and sew a 1/4 inch in on all sides of this piece. So at your sewing machine, go ahead and turn it on. Line up your pieces. This is where you might want to stick a couple of pins in it, so you can hold all 3 pieces relatively in the same spot, so it is easier to sew these together. And if you're making several of these activity mats fidget quilts, I like to go ahead and make like 20 of these at a time. And that way when I'm ready to sit down and do my fidget quilt, I can go ahead and sew them all together. But let's do this first. And when you get to your first corner, needle down, foot up, pivot, and do that point. Needle down, foot up, pivot on each of the points. Needle down. And yes, you can leave an opening if you want, instead of cutting in the fabric, but it's not going to show because we have our hooks and loop going directly over that spot. So let's go ahead and pull it out of the sewing machine. We're going to trim our threads. Now on all of our points, we're going to go ahead and clip off the points so that they are not in the way. We are not going to go over our stitch line. We're just going to simply, everywhere there's a point, we're going to clip it off and clip it off and clip it off. And now we see when we fold it in half, we're going to have the point going over the end. So we want the point to go a little bit further. You don't need to do this, but I'm doing this so you can see that it is actually a point under there. So it's a point on a flat. So the point overlaps a little bit, and then we're going to have our hooks and loops right in the center. So we know we can lift up one piece of fabric on either end. Make sure you separate it to only get one piece of fabric. And then we're going to make a little slit in the fabric and turn it right side out. And again, you want that slit being between 1 and 2 inches so that it's easy to, probably 2 inches, so it's easy to turn. I've made mine about 1 inch, so let's cut it a little bit longer. And then we're going to stick our finger inside. We're going to hold the point when our thumb is on the inside. Hold our point and pull it out. And then we're going to go ahead and turn the rest of it right side out. Put our finger in a point, push our finger against it, pull it out through the hole, and turn it right side out. Just with a quick little motion like that. And now we're going to make it flat, go over to the ironing board and iron our piece of fabric. And then we'll come right back here to the sewing machine and I will show you how we finish it up to make it look like this. So right now we've created a tube with the fabric on all sides, the batting on the inside to give it a little bit of body, a little bit of bulk. So when you're relearning your skill of using the hooks and loops, it is much more sturdy and nicer to work with. And you can use the end of your scissors if you like to push out all of your points. And we're going to go iron. Okay, and we have our iron on hot on the cotton setting, and we're just going to give it a quick press. We do have it on steam, on cotton, and just a quick press on both sides, and we are ready to go do our hooks and loops. Okay, and this is our hole that we created to turn our product right side out. But again, it's not going to show because our hooks and loop piece is going right on top of that. So let's go back to the sewing machine and take a look. Okay, and we are back at our sewing machine, and I was able to find a different piece of hooks and loops. And this one's a little bit longer than I want to use. Not necessary to have it this long. So I am sure I will have a use for another piece. What I'm comfortable with is about that 2-inch, 2.5-inch size. And if we take a look at this one, this is exactly 2.5 inches. So 2.5 inches of your hooks and loop. And then we're going to take half and sew it on one side and half and sew it on the other side. So when they close, they're going to meet up perfectly. So let's go ahead and see. When we close them, we want our point going down a little bit around them. So we can grab a hold of that and pull it up. So this is where I think we want it laying. So just remember, we want it about a 1/2 inch off of the bottom. We'll separate these two and go ahead and sew this one on. Okay, so right now I have blue thread in the bobbin and the needle, so you might want to go ahead and switch over to purple. And do remember, if you are gifting this to an Alzheimer's patient or to a young child, a baby, you do want to make sure everything is very, very secure. So whether you're sewing something on by hand or by sewing machine, just make sure that button or that piece is going to be able to handle the wear and tear and never, ever, ever have a choking hazard. Because again, anytime you're making an item for a child or for an Alzheimer's patient, it is possible it could go in their mouth. And we do not want to create anything that is going to be a choking hazard. So we want to be very aware of our items being affixed securely to prevent any concern or any fear that could happen. So again, if you use a lighter thread, it's not going to show up as much, but again, the darker thread does show up better on a tutorial, so that's why I'm doing it. And you can put some frou-frou, some decorations on top so your stitches never show, or just simply be a lot neater than I am. So let's go ahead and see if we can put the bottom one on a little bit neater, shall we? And then again, I can cover that up with a zigzag stitch and you'll never know it. So maybe I should do that, because that is a little bit messier than I intended. And of course, using this color, it's pretty bright. Okay, so let's hook on the other side. Pull down. Let's trim our threads. Those threads do have a tendency to get in the way. Okay, so just for fun, let's see if going up and down, now the bottom one's not going to show because I'm sewing it down, but let's go ahead and switch over to a zigzag stitch, maybe on a 1 length on a 4 width. And see, oops, let's raise our needle. Let's see if that covers up our ickiness of our view. And using a fancier stitch is kind of nice because then you are just thread painting it, if you will. How do you like it? So you can decide how you want to sew these on. But again, I like to go over them more than once because I want them extremely secure. I want this learning, relearning tool to be able to, so what do you think? Zigzag, no zigzag? Might as well zigzag, no harm, no foul. Couldn't do it worse. And I do like to stop my zigzag on the outside. That way when I turn it, everything keeps lining up. And as you see on the other one, I was much neater. I did not need a zigzag. I used the proper thread to cover that up. But hey, life goes on. I'm having fun, right? All right, whoops. Okay, let's pull that out, trim our threads, made some kind of creation there. It's not so bad, right? Okay, so now to complete this piece, we're going to put it back on a single stitch, changing our width back down to 0, going to a single stitch, and we're going to sew all the way around the entire piece. Okay, so let's just start. And I unthread my needle. Trim off our threads. And we are done with this piece. Okay. Now, all of those pieces that you saw that we had collected to go onto our fidget quilt, we now want to decide what goes where, what are we going to use, and how are we going to do it. I like to start by using our binding, bias tape as binding to go around, and putting some of our ribbon as we go. So let's do that. Okay, now with all of our ribbons, I like to have them in different lengths, approximately 4 inches, fold them in half, and then we're going to put them in the binding as we go around our fabric. Now, Wendy, where did you get the fabric? Well, I actually had 2 pieces of fabric with a batting in the center, and I long arm quilted it, and then I cut it up into different pieces, and I sewed around the edge one time to secure that piece, and now we're going to go around it with a binding. But if you don't have that long arm or that blanket to cut up to make these, well, a blanket is an idea. Other than that, consider a fabric what do you call them? Table mat, place mat for the table, or simply go to your fabric store and purchase already quilted fabric. You can get it right off the bolt. All you need is this piece, and again, this is a large piece. You don't need it this large. This one is actually 15 inches by 21. So this one is a 15 by 21, but again, it needs to be lap size, something to put in your laps, to put on top, in front of you at the table to create this. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a bunch of pieces up into smaller pieces so we can go ahead and sew them on as we go around. So I'm just going through and cutting a bunch of ribbon. Now, if you're going to make several of these, you can buy maybe 3 spools of matching ribbon. You can get them on sale at a lot of the fabric or craft stores. And we can put these on as we go around. Just grab whatever ribbon you have. You want to cut it in approximately 4-inch strips, some longer, some shorter, whatever your preference, so we can add them into the binding, and I'm going to show you how we do that in just a moment. Now, these came around fabric or gifts or something else. Never throw it away. Everything can be reused again. And I really like that bow, so we might sew that onto the front of it. So I'm just going to cut the bow out. We can sew it onto the front of the mat because that looks pretty secure. Maybe give someone who likes a challenge, likes to untie knots, the ability to tie and untie the ribbon. That's kind of like shoelace. Perfect. Because we're going to put shoelace for tying and untying as well. And again, just keep cutting up your ribbon in approximately 4-inch pieces. No, please, please, please do not measure. Some longer, some shorter are fun. Maybe cut some in 2 inches, some in 3 inches. And this is really thin, but we'll go ahead and do a couple of these. I like using the thicker ribbon because our hands can get on them and feel them a little bit easier than that. This one, maybe I'll keep that knot too, because I know some people, or the knot's coming apart, we'll see. I know some people that really like just tying and untying knots. It's a comfort level for them when they have nothing to do. It keeps their fingers busy. So that is a great activity. This knot's all undone. And yes, I can tie it again and do it. But we'll have those pieces. And this fabric, I'm sure I bought it on sale. I'm a sale junkie. I'm a haul. I don't shop, but maybe once every 3 or so months. I like to catch them right after a holiday, and I like to pick things up on sale. So this could have been in the Christmas section. I have no idea. But it's a feel-good, like a, I don't know what you call it, a velour, a velvet. It's beautiful. And this is so... this fabric could go for men or women. So please, even though this one is leaning towards pinks, you can do them in complete browns and blues and greens and make a beautiful, beautiful man, masculine. So we're going to take this and we're going to go ahead and put it around, starting in about maybe 1/4 of the bottom. And we're going to sew this all the way around, sticking in our beautiful laces as we go. So let me try and show you that. And I do agree, and I apologize. It is kind of tough to show you without my fingers getting in the way. But we're going to try to make sure that you understand what I'm doing as we go along. Okay, so we're going ahead and showing you how to put on the bias. And we're just sewing all the way around it. We're going to take our ribbon and lace, fold it in half with the best feely part on the outside, and we want to tuck it under the bias and sew it down at the same time that we're sewing around the bias or our binding. And I like to put these on every side. So you may only want them on one side of the fidget quilt. I like them on all sides of the fidget quilt. I never know where somebody's hands is going to be, and I want them to have that beautiful color as well as the textural feel wherever is convenient for their hands to go. And there's no rhyme or reason. You can bunch them all up. You can spread them all out. Just don't want these floating on the floor as we go. And you can put a couple of the same color, or you can make sure the colors are spaced out. Whatever works for you is what you want to do. And this one, see how it is like that? We can spread it out. They don't have to go together straight, or we can just cut it off straight and keep them all together. Whatever you want, it does not matter. This is a piece of art. You make it yours. Okay, and how to go around the corner. I'm hoping you're seeing this. We're going to take this and we're just going to lay this down. Pinch this open, tuck the bottom side underneath, top side on top, and we want it to come together like a little point, to where that fold is directly pointed in the center. And sometimes that's hard to work with. Sometimes you might want to do it with a needle before you sit down to sew it, so it is ready to go. We're going to get a little bit more fabric, push towards the corner. You got to make it work on both sides. That's the trick to get your point. And it's working on the back side, not wanting to work on the front side. Out a little bit more. Over and over. There we go. We got it. Use your stiletto here if you have one, or even a needle to help hold that down. Lift our needle up. All right, and then we can turn our corner. And hopefully you can see how these ribbons are going together at the top and how that looks. We're going to put a few more on going down the side. Perfectly folded, perfectly tight and snug up there. It's important you catch both the front and the back of the ribbon as you go. And again, you can put as many pieces of ribbon on or as few as you like. I like a lot. It's part of the overall fidget quilt. It's not only beautiful, but it's functional. Imagine putting one of these in the laps of someone you love at a senior center or a retirement home who is working through rehab, going through a situation where they feel like they're struggling or they're fidgeting. Everybody is going to look at this beautiful thing sitting in their lap, and it's going to be a talking piece to where everybody's going to want to know, where did they get that? That is so beautiful, and it's so functional. I'm having trouble with my corners. My fat fingers don't want to work. There we go. Now we're working. Okay, and that didn't point. Let's revamp that, make it point. Down, 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 and up. There we go. And that point is good, but it's off a little. There we go. Okay. To backstitch right over that corner because I want it to make sure it catches both pieces. And see how I needle down, foot up, pivot, and then we're going to start on the third side. These ribbons feel so good. I'm so sorry about my fat fingers. Let's see if I can get you a little more breathing room in your visuals. But again, please, 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 please consider making these, whether they're for a baby shower or someone who has had a stroke, or you just want to make them for your local memory facility, such as rehab or the retirement centers who have the individuals dealing with Alzheimer's. These are wonderful to put in their lap. I have visited when my mother-in-law was in a retirement home. She had all of her faculties absolutely wonderful on the ball woman, but there were a lot of men and women there that every time I went to visit her, they would just be sitting in their wheelchairs out in the hall. And oh my goodness, they love to see you when you come in. But just imagine if I could have lit up their faces and give them each one of these. So I will not make that mistake again. We are making fidget quilts. We are donating fidget quilts. We are giving fidget quilts away. We are encouraging you to do fidget quilts because quality of life matters, y'all. Quality of life. These are fun. They're beautiful. They're fun. And again, they give your fingers something to do. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, another corner. So we're going to open this up. We're going to flatten it out, and we are going to fold it in half, if you will, and then tuck it around the corner. And then we make sure our overlap on both sides come out to a point. We want it to point right there at the corner. So we've got a little finagling to do before we get it to be happy. Right there, we got it. So that's a nice sharp point. Now we want to flatten it out. Open this up, tuck that in, make sure it's tight, 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 snug. Come on, get in there. And then this one, we've got to fold that back further. Make sure that point comes out where it's supposed to. Ha-ha! All right. Come on, get there. All right. And needle down. Oh my goodness, going around 1, 2, 3, the third corner. We've got one more corner to go to finish her up. And I am loving this. So we're putting all of those ribbons on. And then we're going to show you the whole thing. And it looks like we've cut up a lot of ribbons, but I like to use a lot of ribbons. So hit that comment block below. Do you know anybody who would benefit from one of these, or what would you like to see on the fidget quilt, or what demonstration would you like I or Sylvia to do for you next? And of course, I am Wendy with Where Wendy Travels, Where Wendy Creates, and my second channel, strictly of sewing, is Where Wendy Creates. And my friends, I like to create everywhere. Everywhere. I like to travel places that inspire me. I like to sit on a picnic table and craft. I like to do all kinds of crafting. My favorite are paper and fabric, but I have been known to create from a lot of different sources, a lot of different things. We did wood ornaments. Those were super fun. And anytime you can get yourself on some handy dandy tools that are huge shop tools, oh my goodness, what fun anyone of any mature age can have with those. Because I had such a blast when I had access to big tools. But again, making an activity mat, you don't need those big tools. You don't need a sewing machine. You can do all of this by hand. You can do bits and pieces, all of this by hand. There is no reason why you can't create some beautiful fabric pieces with no sewing machine. That was weird. That was really weird. It's okay. Okay, so we have all of the ribbons on our fidget quilt. Now we want to start putting down all of our pieces. Okay, so now let's figure out some of our layout. So just start putting any of those pieces that you've collected. And these are fabric beads. I do have a fabric bead tutorial. We just cut them off the straw, put them on a string, and they can move them back and forth. So that's fun to play with. So go ahead and start putting your pieces out anywhere you want on your activity mat or fidget quilt, and decide where you want things laying. Do I want a blue or do I want a pink? I don't know, I'm kind of leaning towards blue. And we said we'd put a little ribbon tie and some of these maybe on it. I like that blue one right up there. And shoelace right in here. So just lay out all of your stuff. And I didn't put any of this on it, but I might put some of this on it too. Maybe some hooks up here with it. And we've got some buttons. Let's maybe look at 2 buttons here. 1 or 2. Maybe 2 buttons. We have our shoelace. We have our hooks and loops. We have feely textures, different textures. Let's do, we've got to do one of these guys. Do we want, what color do we want? Maybe a purple over here to balance it out. Wondering, green on green would be very pretty. Look at this piece of lace. And with these pencil grips, we simply can put them on a piece of lace and we can sew down the lace. And that way they can play with this one-handed, two-handed, whatever they have available. And it's just a pencil grip. There's no harm, no foul. It's just a soft plastic. Okay, so I think that... and 1 shoelace. Okay. Now, also, I have a piece of fabric, and this was a complete scrap. It was almost a 5 by 5 inch with some batting in the center, and I just did that as something else to maybe pull up, play with, tug on, something. It has no purpose other than textural and visual appeal. And I thought maybe I would put that on, and maybe we'll put on a bow. Okay, so there are my pieces, my basic layout. Am I happy with that? Do I want to change anything around? My colors are all over the board. And it's good to make a whole bunch of these because you never know what color or what... might brighten and perk people up. Well, crazy wild colors. What do you think? Maybe if I took my bear off of my green ribbon and put him on a white ribbon, use that for a different fidget quilt, put the purple one back over here. I have the dark blue here, but it clashes with this one. So maybe we will go back to the pink one here. And that orange, that's the only orange. I have no other orange here. So let's take off the orange, put on the pink. Okay, the colors feel a little bit better to me now. The red clashes, even though I have the red, it's a different color red, but I like the textural feel of the spoon. So maybe drop some of these on and sew them on in different places too. Okay, so here is my activity mat. Let's go ahead and start putting all the pieces together. All right, so we are ready to sew our fidget quilt pieces down. So let's go ahead and move them all over to the side. We've gotten rid of everything that we weren't going to use on this project. And now we can start placing them down. So first we're going to start with our hooks and loops. And I'm going to set this down here and pull the sewing machine over. I'm going to put a brown thread in the bobbin to match the back of our fidget quilt. And we're just simply going to sew half of this on so it is secure. And at the bottom, I'm going to sew a couple of times back and forth across to make sure it is secure. Because this piece is going to get a lot of pull, a lot of tug. Just simply roll up part of your fidget quilt. So it fits in the neck of your machine. And at the top of the hooks and loops, I'm going to go back and forth several times as well. Okay, and that one is done. Happy, happy. Trim our threads. And now we decide my placement. I don't remember what I decided to put where, but let's go ahead and start sewing down what we think we did where. We're going to do our tassel. And when you're maneuvering things underneath the needle, well, be careful or you're going to have to rethread if you're pulling and tugging and not paying attention. Because I just unthreaded my needle. So pop that back in there. And again, these pieces are going to get played with and pulled on, so we want to make sure they are secure. So I'm going to go over this piece several times to make sure I'm comfortable with it being solid. I am more than secure with that being solid now. All right, so let's go ahead and trim our threads. Pull it out from under, and you see we have the first couple of pieces on here. We have our hooks and loop, we have our tassel, put our hooks and loops back down on top of him. We have our tassel, and now I'm thinking maybe the shoelace or the shoelace? What do you think? Shoelace up top, shoelace in the bottom? Maybe shoelace in the bottom. So with the shoelace, we're going to take it and we're going to, we don't need the whole shoelace because that's enough thread. This usually goes through all the different hooks and loops for our shoes. So we can cut this part off and use it for something else. So let's go ahead and do that. And no, I'm not measuring, I'm trimming. So this piece can go to hook the spoons. That's what it was. I have the spoon and this up here. So we can hook those on right here. Let's do that and then we'll come back to the shoelace. So we're going to take our shoelace and put it through one hole, and then we're going to go ahead and put it through the other hole. I think I'm going to sew in the middle so that the two of them don't come together. So I'm going to sew on both ends and I'm going to sew in the middle. So I'm going to sew right here on the end, right here on the end, and right in the middle. So let's do that. And we're sliding this under, making sure we're happy with that. I think and we trim our threads as we go. If we don't, just remember it could pull from the underneath, and if you get stuck, that's probably why, because you did not trim your threads. Okay, so let's turn our put it in the neck. Lay our silverware properly. And again, however you want to affix these, hit that comment button down below. Tell me what your ideas are, what your thoughts are. What would you like to see on an activity mat? Have you ever seen an activity mat? How would you create these? All right, now let's trim our threads again and go to the last one here. Put our spoon under the neck of the machine. And Sylvia doesn't think I need to do so many back and forth threadings, so she likes to put buttons over all of the places I have done that. But you see here, I hope you can see, we have the spoon, we have the spatula, the masher right here, and they're different texture, a little scratchy, but again, you can put your whole hand around them and maybe work on that coordination of the fist grip to help with the eating chores as well. Learning and relearning mat. Okay, so let's go ahead and put on our shoelace like we talked about. Now we're going to put our shoelace down here and we're going to sew it. After we sew it, we're going to tie it. So let's do that now. We have our shoelace pieces, and we're going to go ahead and sew them in, kind of like your shoes. They come off of different sides of the shoe, so they're usually about, I don't know, 1.5 inches, 2 inches apart when they come out of that last brad to be sewn. So we're, to be tied. So we're going to go ahead and sew these in kind of right here, and we're just going to turn our pieces once we know where we want them, and we're going to sew back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. These as well should get a lot of use in that learning and relearning, so we want to make sure they are secure. Wow, Wendy, what on earth? What a mess you made. Well, it does make them secure. So I'm just going forward and back, locking in those stitches, making them one with the backing of the quilt. And again, I'm going forward, hitting the reverse button, going forward, hitting the reverse button. And I'm pulling it a little bit at the same time, so I do that 1/2 inch coverage. And again, not necessary to do it as much as I do it, but I want that to be tough and secure and ready to handle the most aggressive workout that it could get. So here we have our laces. I want to go ahead and trim off our threads. And then we're simply going to, I've got a loose thread down here. Then we're going to simply tie them like we normally tie a shoe. Now, hopefully this is going to have others who receive this mat tying this over and over and over again, learning to tie or relearning to tie. And I will tell you, some individuals after a stroke, they can only use one hand. So can you tie your shoes with only one hand? So that's a great learning and relearning. I like the look of that. I will tell you, Sylvia doesn't. So if you don't, that's perfectly okay. Just take some extra little buttons and cover up that extra mess, if you don't like it, on your own fidget quilt or activity mat that you're going to make to gift to someone in need. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill up the rest of this spot. And we have lots of different things we said we were doing. We're going to hook down the yellow. I think I'll hook down the 4 bottom pieces and leave the top piece up. That's a good feelie, and it's also a challenge to undo that knot. Okay, and I thought some of this. So what even about this? Sewing this down using this. What do you think? That way they can lift it, they can put it down. I like that idea. So let's go ahead and cut this to that size for that piece. And then I like a lot of challenge with the elastic. And I use headbands because they're prettier than elastic on a fidget quilt. We can make some with some beads on it or some without beads on it, whatever you want to do. Did we use the teddy bear yet? Thought we had used the teddy bear. I don't see the teddy bear. So we can do the teddy bear on elastic or put it on ribbon like we had talked about. So however you think. But I think right there might be perfect with him, her, it. And then I have the green hair tie that is brand new, never used. And it's thick, it's foofy. So I think I'll just sew it down. So that, and then maybe the buttons in here. Buttons and bows. Okay, so let's stop talking and let's start sewing. What do you think? Just some different bows. We could even put the bows right there on top of the lace if that lace bothers you. And I will recommend hand sewing these on instead of machine sewing, because the machine sewing is going to look like a mess. So hand sew these on. Let's use the machine for these other parts. So let's take these off we're going to do the buttons and the bows by hand, okay? I think so. And now, let's sew down some of these pieces. So let's pull that sewing machine back into the area and start sewing. I think I liked him right there, right? I think so. I think so. And we can trim our threads. Go down to the bottom of his elastic. And that's just a piece of a headband. This elastic, the yellow, is a piece. Ooh, that looked like it messed up. Did I lose my thread? I unthread myself. So let's go ahead and rethread that needle. Don't know what I did there. I think I wasn't paying attention and I let it slip up. Anytime you're threading your needle, recut the thread. It's just so much easier to go through, even if you've just cut it. It saves a lot of effort and a lot of trying. Okay, now, sorry about that. And we're just sewing that piece down. Trim our threads. And again, if you want to keep changing thread, I do recommend it. That way everything blends in better. You may want to go with some of these with the thread of the back of the mat so it matches a little better. All right, let's sew the 4 threads down on this one. Threads, ribbons, ribbon, ribbon, ribbon. So we want to not do the top 2 with a knot. We only want to do the bottom. And I never thought knots were that much of something that you would ever want to do. But sometimes people just like a comfort, don't think about it, just do it. And undoing a knot seems extremely satisfying for some people. So again, that's why I say a knot. You may know your person and know what they like and dislike, so you can create the perfect fidget quilt for that person. Or if you don't, just think of all the daily activities and what might mimic some of the most basic things that we never think about. Think about a child learning to tie their shoes, learning to zipper. Oh, that's what I didn't do. Where's my zipper? Learning all of the different traits, how to feed themselves, how to brush their teeth. A fidget quilt isn't just for textural visual appeal, but it's a great physical therapy, occupational therapy. It really comes in handy sometimes if a person has had a stroke or some other debilitating event that created a need for a relearning or to do things differently because they don't have full use of their arms, hands, or feet any longer. Okay, so that's upside down. There we go. Okay, so now do we have room for our zipper still? Sometimes if I have them, I'll put on a change purse or a zipper purse, or if I can find them cheaply when they're on sale or clearance, I buy the zipper purses and I just sew on that zipper purse, leaving them the ability to open, oopsie, is this a bad zipper? No. Open and close that zipper and have a little pocket for them to maybe keep their name tag or something that they want to have with them. But again, this is a great learning activity, so let's go ahead and sew the zipper down as well. And what I recommend is go a straight stitch all the way around and then go ahead and do a zipper stitch, a zigzag stitch. And that way, you know you're very secure with your zipper. Okay, that looks right just about there. And you want to sew just at your edge. And sometimes I find it easy. Lift your foot, unzipper it so we get the bulk out of here so we can get closer to the zipper. When you get right out to the end of your zipper, needle down, foot up, pivot, roll your activity quilt so you can get in to the edge. Once we get down just a little bit, I want the needle down, foot up, and then move that zipper back up out of the way. I hope you're seeing this okay. Oh, what am I doing? Did I go off? Nope, I did not. Pull your thread. That's interesting. It just didn't want to cooperate there. Okay, so trim your previous thread so you don't get that in the way. Or needle down, foot up, pivot. Now again, we can go around that zipper in a zigzag stitch to secure it even more. Not necessary, but you can. I think we're going to skip the zigzag stitch. I kind of like the look of that. I may come back and do the zigzag stitch. But I think I'll run the zipper up and down a few times. I think that's good enough. Okay, so let's go ahead and trim our threads. And then we're ready to go ahead and hand sew the buttons and the bows. So let's see what we look like. What do you think? All right, so let's go ahead and get out our needle and thread and go ahead and affix our buttons and our bows. Turn off our machine. See what we look like there. And I think we'll sew on one more tassel. And we just go forward, reverse, until we're comfortable. Our tassel is secure. And we went ahead and stitch on our hair tie, so we have that as well. And I am feeling very good about this fidget quilt. I hope you have enjoyed the journey. I'm going to go ahead and grab my needle and thread, put on my last couple of touches, and then this beautiful activity mat, activity quilt, is ready for gifting. What do you think? Thanks, my friends. Thanks for joining me today. You have a wonderful afternoon. Hit that comment, hit that subscribe. I want you back on my channel. Thank you, my friends.